Did you know that Princess Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, now officially owns one of the Queen's most private estates? This isn't just any property, it's a royal treasure that has been in the monarchy for centuries. And the move has left Camilla's family in utter shock, reportedly furious over being left out. But what really happened behind those palace walls? How did Catherine secure this prize, and why did it spark such fury? The story begins in a quiet corner of the English countryside, at one of the Queen's oldest private estates, a place the public rarely glimpses. For decades, this estate was considered untouchable, a royal sanctuary, preserved through centuries, away from cameras and gossip. But recently, whispers started circulating in palace circles. Princess Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, had become the official owner. Suddenly, a property steeped in history was at the center of a modern royal drama. Catherine, known for her poise, elegance, and impeccable public image, had always been admired by the Queen. But this move was unprecedented. Shocking fact, insiders claim that the estate's transfer was arranged in secret, with meetings held behind closed doors involving senior advisors and legal experts. No public announcement, no media coverage, just a quiet, calculated shift of royal power. Camilla's family, however, reportedly felt blindsided. According to palace sources, they had long hoped to have some claim or influence over this estate. The sudden transfer left them furious, their whispers of outrage echoing through the royal corridors. They were not prepared, said one anonymous insider. This was more than property. It was influence, status, and a foothold in the inner circle of the monarchy. The tension wasn't just legal, it was personal. Letters and documents dating back decades surfaced, hinting at subtle rivalries over private estates. Catherine's team, meticulous and patient, had ensured every detail of the acquisition was airtight. Her rise in influence was quietly cemented, while Camilla's relatives scrambled to understand what had happened. Shocking fact, some palace insiders revealed that Catherine's ownership also gives her a voice in local estate matters that were traditionally reserved for senior consorts. This wasn't just about land, it was about power, visibility, and the unspoken hierarchy within the royal family. The public, of course, had no idea. To them, it seemed like just another royal property, quietly managed and rarely discussed. But behind the palace walls, the stakes were high, emotions were raw, and family loyalties were being tested. The Queen's quiet endorsement of Catherine's new role sent ripples that would inevitably reach every corner of the royal household. And yet, a question lingers. How did Catherine manage to secure such a coveted estate without a public feud erupting? And why did Camilla's family react with such fury? The answers, hidden in secret meetings and careful maneuvers, would soon unravel a story of ambition, influence, and silent strategy that few expected. While the public saw Catherine's acquisition as a simple transfer of property, the truth was far more complicated, and far more secretive. Behind the palace walls, months of planning, private meetings, and delicate negotiations had quietly unfolded. This estate wasn't just land, it was a symbol of influence, a foothold in the heart of the monarchy, and a prize that had sparked tension for decades. Shocking fact, archival letters discovered by historians reveal that the estate had been quietly considered for other senior consorts, including Camilla, years ago. These letters hinted that the Queen had long debated who should inherit the property, weighing loyalty, capability, and public favor. The estate had never been officially assigned, leaving it vulnerable to strategic maneuvering by those closest to the crown. Catherine's team moved with precision. Legal advisors drafted documents in secrecy. Senior aides arranged consultations in private chambers. Even the Queen herself reportedly monitored the process closely, ensuring that the transfer would be legally unassailable. Sources say the Queen admired Catherine's careful, composed approach, her ability to navigate palace politics without creating scandal. This admiration, insiders claim, played a critical role in the Queen's decision. The motives were layered. Catherine, ever aware of her public image, understood that ownership of the estate would solidify her influence not just within the family, but in the eyes of the nation. Meanwhile, Camilla's relatives saw the estate as a legacy piece, a way to cement their place in the monarchy's inner circle. Their hopes were dashed when the documents were quietly finalized. Shocking fact, one insider revealed that even palace staff were surprised by the transfer. Longtime employees, who had watched these estates pass through generations, reportedly described the move as unexpected, bold, and historic. This wasn't just a property shift, It was a statement about Catherine's rising stature and the changing dynamics of royal power. Public speculation was still minimal at this stage. The press had no knowledge of the meetings, the letters, or the strategic planning. But whispers in social circles began to circulate, hinting at unrest within Camilla's family. Leaks suggested tension over influence and legacy, though the details remained murky. People were starting to wonder, why was Catherine suddenly taking charge of one of the monarchy's most private estates? Behind closed doors, the palace prepared for the inevitable fallout. Even with legal certainty, emotions ran high. The Queen and Catherine were aligned, but Camilla's relatives were reportedly furious, frustrated, and feeling powerless. And yet, no one suspected the full scale of the quiet revolution unfolding within the royal household. And so, the hidden truth remained mostly unseen by the public. It was a story of careful planning, family politics, and subtle power plays, a story that, if revealed too soon, could ignite a scandal that the palace had worked so hard to prevent. But what no one realized at the time was that this estate wasn't just about property or influence. It was a symbol that could change the balance of power within the royal family forever. And yet, no one suspected the truth about what was happening in the royal household, until it was too late. The moment Catherine's ownership of the Queen's private estate leaked, the media erupted. Headlines screamed in tabloids across the nation, "Catherine claims Queen's secret estate," and "Camilla's family furious over royal snub." Within hours, social media was ablaze. Fans of the Duchess praised her savvy and elegance, while critics questioned why such a private matter had been allowed to happen without transparency. Shocking fact, palace insiders revealed that the initial leak wasn't accidental. Some believe a cautious member of Catherine's team deliberately let hints slip to test public reaction, a move that confirmed both her popularity and the inevitability of Camilla's relatives' backlash. This small spark sent a media firestorm rolling across the country. News channels rushed to cover the story, broadcasting heated debates about royal protocol, inheritance rights, and family loyalty. Journalists speculated endlessly. Did Catherine's rise signal a shift in royal power? Was the Queen subtly reshaping the monarchy's hierarchy? And how did Camilla's family react behind closed doors? While the palace remained silent, speculation grew louder with every passing hour. Shocking fact, some media historians point to a similar scenario in the 1950s, when a private estate transfer involving Princess Margaret was leaked. Back then, newspapers were heavily censored, and the story was buried. Today, with digital media and instant sharing, secrecy is nearly impossible, and the palace quickly realized they had to manage not just the estate, but the story itself. Inside Buckingham Palace, tension was palpable. Advisors drafted statements, carefully balancing discretion with reassurance. Catherine's team emphasized her dedication to charity and community, hoping to shift focus from the property to her public contributions. Meanwhile, Camilla's relatives reportedly reached out to journalists, expressing frustration that their family's hopes had been ignored. Their statements were subtle, but the media read them as thinly veiled protests. Shocking fact, one senior royal aide later admitted that this media frenzy was far more intense than anyone expected. Even the Queen's usual experience with the press was no match for the velocity of digital gossip, instant social media reactions, and speculative news cycles. The palace had to move fast to control the narrative. The tension escalated further as royal correspondents dug into past property transfers, uncovering letters, legal documents, and historic precedents. They discovered patterns of family disputes, secret agreements, and previous times when royal estates had quietly changed hands, never publicly acknowledged. Suddenly, Catherine's acquisition wasn't just news. It became a story about power, strategy, and generational shifts within the monarchy. And yet, behind all the headlines, a deeper mystery remained. Shocking fact, sources indicate that the royal family had a hidden ally in the media, a journalist sympathetic to Catherine's cause, someone who could subtly shape coverage without drawing attention. But for how long could this discreet support last before the full story broke wide open? As the cameras rolled, the columns printed, and social media buzzed, one question lingered. Could the palace survive this storm unscathed, or would the media frenzy expose deeper rifts within the royal family, ones that had long been carefully hidden from public eyes? Inside the royal household, the fallout from Catherine's acquisition was quietly explosive. While the public saw a poised duchess managing her new estate, behind the gilded walls, tensions simmered. Family dinners turned into silent standoffs. Private meetings became battlegrounds for loyalty, influence, and old grievances. The transfer of the Queen's private estate had done more than shift property. It had shifted the balance of power within the monarchy. Shocking fact, palace insiders revealed that some of Camilla's closest relatives were outraged by the move, feeling entirely sidelined. One source described it as a punch to the family's pride, noting that they had long expected a say in how such an estate would be managed. Their frustration wasn't just about land, it was about status, access, and influence in the inner circles of royal life. Catherine, aware of the delicate dynamics, reportedly acted with careful diplomacy. She maintained her public charm, but privately, she held firm. Sources describe her as gracious yet strategic, fully aware that any hint of overreach could ignite a feud that would engulf the family. Meanwhile, Camilla's relatives were vocal in private, questioning every move, every decision, and even the timing of Catherine's acquisition. Shocking fact, letters and private communications obtained by historians suggest that the Queen anticipated these tensions. She personally intervened, reminding senior family members that loyalty and discretion were paramount. Yet even her guidance couldn't fully prevent the fractures from widening. For the first time in decades, some insiders report, family members openly debated the Duchess's growing influence, a rare break from tradition where public disagreement was almost taboo. Historical parallels are striking. Some historians compare this situation to Princess Diana's separation from Prince Charles, when private family divisions became impossible to contain, ultimately spilling into public view. Others cite Prince Harry and Meghan's exit from royal life as a modern example of how unaddressed personal rifts can reshape the monarchy. In Catherine's case, the difference was subtlety. The disagreement stayed behind closed doors, but the undercurrent was unmistakable. Shocking fact, one aide claimed that private conversations included pointed comparisons, with Camilla's relatives reminding each other of past estates and privileges that had been promised, but never delivered, highlighting a recurring pattern of family disputes over land and status. The estate wasn't just property, it was a symbol of legacy, a marker of influence that could never truly be ignored. As tensions mounted, loyalty became a central question. Who would side with Catherine, and who would quietly support Camilla? Sources suggest that alliances formed and shifted, often in secret, with subtle gestures of support or disapproval carrying enormous weight. Every event, every engagement, every glance at public appearances now carried a hidden message, a silent signal of where each person stood. Yet, amid the drama, Catherine maintained her calm, continuing to manage the estate's affairs, host charitable events, and remain the picture of royal elegance. But the palace was acutely aware that these divisions could flare again. The feud might be contained, but the simmering resentment remained, a silent, powerful force shaping the family's dynamics. And so the question lingered like a shadow over every royal gathering. Was the scandal truly over? Or was this just the beginning, a prelude to an even bigger revelation that would test loyalties, reshape relationships, and perhaps redefine the monarchy itself? Even after Catherine's ownership of the Queen's private estate was finalized, the drama was far from over. While the legal documents were airtight, whispers of challenges began circulating. Camilla's family reportedly considered legal avenues, questioning the transfer and hinting at breaches in tradition. Some advisors feared a lawsuit could erupt, forcing the royal household into a public crisis. But Catherine's team had anticipated every move, ensuring her claim was legally unassailable. Shocking fact, royal legal experts say this estate transfer was unprecedented in modern history. Unlike standard inheritance, private royal estates operate under special laws that allow the monarch discretion in assignments. By leveraging these powers, Catherine's team effectively blocked any potential challenge before it could even reach court. Sources describe it as a masterclass in legal strategy and foresight. The public, however, wasn't privy to these legal subtleties. All they saw was a story unfolding in headlines, a beloved duchess securing a royal estate, and Camilla's family appearing sidelined. Outrage and fascination mixed online, with social media debates flaring about fairness, tradition, and royal favoritism. Many expressed shock that such a move could happen quietly, without public input or parliamentary oversight. Shocking fact, one media historian noted that past royal estate disputes, like those over the Duchy of Cornwall in the 20th century, had sometimes escalated into weeks of negative press coverage. Today, with instant news cycles and digital gossip, the stakes were even higher. Any perceived misstep could spiral into a full-blown scandal. Inside the palace, the legal battle was paired with strategic messaging. Catherine maintained a public focus on her charitable work, community engagement, and family duties, subtly reinforcing that her ownership of the estate was not just a personal gain, but a responsibility she intended to honor. Meanwhile, Camilla's relatives voiced their discontent discreetly, through private letters and carefully worded interviews. These subtle protests, though not overtly confrontational, kept the media attention simmering. Shocking fact: sources reveal that some palace aides worried that Camilla's family might leverage social media influencers and sympathetic journalists to pressure the royal household publicly. The palace responded by increasing its communication monitoring, carefully managing narratives while keeping Catherine's public image intact. The personal impact on the family was profound. Reports suggest private tensions grew, with long-standing grievances resurfacing. Camilla's relatives reportedly felt isolated and frustrated, while Catherine's allies quietly celebrated a hard-won victory. Even the Queen, who had supported Catherine's acquisition, reportedly spent hours mediating and reassuring both sides, understanding that family unity was just as important as legal authority. Shocking fact: a legal historian revealed that the monarchy rarely had to defend private estate transfers in modern times. Catherine's case might become a precedent, subtly redefining how future estates could be assigned, and perhaps signaling a shift in royal traditions and protocols. By the end of this period, the palace had weathered the legal storm, but not the emotional one. Camilla's relatives remained quietly resentful, while Catherine's influence had expanded beyond property to family power and public perception. The media, ever watchful, remained ready to report the next twist in this ongoing saga. And yet, a lingering question persisted. Was this the royal family's worst crisis yet, or was a larger, even more destabilizing revelation still waiting to emerge? Only time would tell if the monarchy could maintain its careful balance, or if deeper rifts were about to be exposed. At last, the transfer of the Queen's private estate to Princess Catherine was complete. Legal documents were finalized, advisors had signed off, and the royal household officially acknowledged her as the new owner. On paper, the drama was resolved. But in reality, the palace was still a tinderbox, filled with whispers, quiet glances, and unresolved tensions that no statement could entirely erase. Shocking fact: some insiders claim that this estate is more than just land. It could serve as a future base of influence for Catherine's own line, shaping succession dynamics and family hierarchy for decades. Ownership of the property gave her not just status, but authority, an unspoken leverage within the royal family that few had ever wielded so strategically. Behind closed doors, Camilla's relatives were forced to reconcile with the outcome. While they maintained public appearances of civility, reports suggest simmering resentment lingered. One insider said, "They knew they had been outmaneuvered, and no one likes being outsmarted quietly. But there was nothing they could do. They had been beaten in a game they didn't even see coming." Catherine, meanwhile, began her stewardship of the estate with a mix of tradition and modernity. She focused on conservation efforts, community projects, and careful management that reflected her commitment to both the land and her public role. Observers noted her deft handling of estate affairs, with every decision reinforcing her image as competent, composed, and deeply connected to the royal legacy. Shocking fact: historians revealed that the Queen rarely reassigns private estates in such a decisive manner. Catherine's acquisition is considered unprecedented in the modern era, a young royal gaining tangible authority without a public dispute or political maneuvering that escalated into scandal. It was a quiet coup, executed with precision, foresight, and subtlety. The Queen's endorsement was equally strategic. By giving Catherine this estate, she was sending a signal about trust, succession, and the monarchy's future. Sources suggest that the Queen admired Catherine's ability to balance charm, intelligence, and discretion, and wanted her to hold a position that was both influential and stable. This move wasn't just about property, it was a carefully calculated investment in the monarchy's next generation. Shocking fact: insiders claim that some advisors believe Catherine's rise could permanently shift the internal hierarchy of the royal family. Her influence over key decisions, ceremonial events, and charitable priorities is now more significant than ever, and her ability to manage both family and public expectations has set a new benchmark for modern royals. Despite these successes, the palace remains vigilant. Camilla's family continues to navigate the tension, maintaining diplomacy while privately adjusting to a diminished role. Catherine's allies, meanwhile, have strengthened their positions, quietly ensuring that the estate's management and associated influence remain firmly in her hands. And yet, a shadow of uncertainty persists. Shocking fact: Sources reveal that some within the palace fear future disputes may arise over properties, succession, or public perception, as younger generations assert their authority. The Queen's decision, though final, may set precedents that reshape royal tradition in ways few can predict. As Catherine settles into her new role, the palace, and the public, watch closely. The estate is more than just land. It is power, legacy, and influence woven into the monarchy's very fabric. And while the immediate crisis may be over, a question hangs in the air: what comes next? Could the shifts caused by this quiet acquisition ripple through the monarchy for years to come, changing alliances, loyalties, and the very balance of power? Because in the world of royalty, even victories can carry unforeseen consequences. And what came next shocked even the most loyal supporters of the crown. Catherine's quiet acquisition of the Queen's private estate is more than a story about property. It's a story about strategy, influence, and the subtle ways power shifts within the royal family. By navigating secret meetings, legal intricacies, and family tensions, Catherine secured more than just land. She cemented her position in the monarchy and reshaped the balance of authority behind palace walls. Shocking fact: some royal analysts suggest this move may set a precedent for how estates are handled in the future, giving younger, popular royals more room to maneuver while maintaining the monarchy's public image. It's a blend of tradition and modern strategy, executed flawlessly by Catherine and quietly endorsed by the Queen. The aftermath leaves lingering questions. How will Camilla's family respond in the long term? Could other private estates become points of contention in the future? And most importantly, does this signal a new era in the monarchy, one where influence is earned quietly, strategically, and sometimes unexpectedly? For the public, the story serves as a reminder that the royal family, despite its centuries-old traditions, is always evolving. Power isn't just inherited, it's claimed, navigated, and maintained, often behind closed doors. And in a family where appearances matter as much as authority, every move carries consequences that ripple across generations. So, what do you think? Was this scandal a turning point for the monarchy? Or was it just the beginning of a new chapter filled with unseen rivalries, quiet maneuvering, and the subtle reshaping of royal power? If you want more royal secrets, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stay updated on the latest exposé. Do you think the royal family will ever fully recover from this scandal? What would have happened if the Queen had made a different decision? Should the royal family change their approach to secrecy?